In my past life, my husband mismanaged the business and drove the company into bankruptcy. He took his mother, his father, his 2 uncles, and 7 of them in total poisoned themselves to death right in front of me. I couldn't bear the shock and passed out. When I woke again, the 7 members of my husband's family had already been cremated before I could even grieve. The loan sharks came knocking again to collect their debt. That was when it finally hit me. I had become the sole survivor of this family. 10 years later, with trembling hands, I finally paid off the last of the debt, only to find that the empty house, deserted for years, was once again filled with the 7 of them. Sui tossed a 1 yuan coin at my feet, thanking me for spending all these years repaying their debt. Watching that smug little bastard so full of himself, I finally couldn't hold back, coughed up blood, and died. When I opened my eyes again, I had gone back to the day my husband went bankrupt. Sui's tear-streaked face appeared before me, every word dripping with tears and anguish. Seria, I know I've wronged you. It was my nepotism and poor management that led the company to bankruptcy and left us drowning in massive debts. His trembling hand pulled out a blue glass bottle, crudely marked with a skull, as if terrified that no one would realize it was poison. Seria, I'm sorry, we're truly out of options. The only way left is to die to atone for it. As he said that, he looked at me deeply. Then, with determination, he raised the glass bottle and gulped it down in big mouthfuls. Seria, I hope you can forgive me. Sui spat out blood and collapsed to the floor, convulsing in agony, yet his eyes still stared deeply at me. Seeing a scene so familiar from my memories, I suddenly realized what was happening. I had been reborn, back to the day 10 years ago when the nightmare began. In my past life, my husband was stubborn and reckless, favoring his relatives and running the company into the ground. I tried to persuade him countless times, but in the end, we became enemies over it. In a fit of anger, we cut off all contact. I never expected that a year later, my husband would show up at my door with my father-in-law, mother-in-law, eldest uncle-in-law, second uncle-in-law, all 7 members of the family. My husband broke down in tears, overwhelmed with regret. He drank poison right in front of me, pleading for my forgiveness even as he lay dying. Before I could even react, all 7 of them poisoned themselves at once, creating a scene of utter horror. Watching the husband I had once loved so dearly die in agony before my eyes, along with all 7 members of his family, brought me to tears. Not only did I forgive my husband for all his wrongdoings, but I was also consumed by anguish and regret. I was so heartbroken that I fainted on the spot. When I woke up, I realized Sushi, my older sister-in-law, had already had all 7 members of their family cremated at lightning speed. Before I could even recover from that overwhelming grief, I was stunned to discover that the loan shark's thugs had already come knocking at the door. They were blocking the entrance with fierce, menacing looks. That was when I was shocked to learn that Sui actually owed a staggering debt of 100 million, and I was the only surviving debtor in the family. No matter how unwilling I was, legally I had to take responsibility for all of it, or I'd end up behind bars. With no other choice, I had to sell off my villa and my company to pay off the debt. I even sold off my parents' company and house together. After that, I worked day and night, juggling 3 jobs on my own, scrimping and saving every penny. It took a full 10 years before I finally paid off the very last cent of debt. Just as I was trembling while handing over the last payment, thinking it was finally over, I was suddenly shocked to discover that the villa I had sold back then was already home to a loving, happy family. My husband had changed his name, was holding a new woman in his arms, and had a lovely pair of children at his feet. My parents-in-law were beaming with smiles, looking even younger than me, and clearly living a very comfortable life. My heart felt as if it had been sliced open by a knife, bloodied and raw. I thought of my parents, who had worked themselves to the bone 3 years ago helping me pay off my debts, and died far too young. I thought of myself over these past 10 years, toiling day and night, already gray-haired at a young age, worn down and haggard. Sui put his arm around his charming young wife and drove off in a luxury car, leaving in his wake. Before leaving, he rolled down the car window and looked at me like I was an idiot. He casually tossed out a single yuan, which landed at my feet. This 1 yuan is to thank you for working so hard to pay off our family's debts. Ha ha ha. Watching the smug, ugly faces of that whole family, I felt like I was being stabbed through the heart by 1,000 arrows. With a loud pft, I coughed up a huge mouthful of blood and sank into eternal darkness. Too. Slap. I took a hard slap across the face before I could even steady myself. Sharp insults cut into my ears. You filthy thing. A husband and wife share affection that lasts 100 days for every day together, and you're just going to stand there and watch my brother die. I was slapped by my sister-in-law, and I suddenly opened my eyes. What met my eyes was my sister-in-law's vicious expression. You heartless, evil thing." My sister-in-law's voice was shrill and piercing. I looked up and saw my older sister-in-law and my younger sister-in-law charging straight at me like two enraged she-wolves. My older sister-in-law, Susie, was heavily pregnant, her eyes blazing with fury. She shot me a venomous glare and pointed at me as she shouted, "This is all because of you, you cold-blooded woman. You won't help us pay off our debts, and you're bent on driving our whole family to death. You're nothing but a demon." The flamboyantly dressed younger sister-in-law, Sophie, also glared at me in anger, her scarlet-painted fingernail pointing right at the tip of my nose. How could you be so cruel? Even if my brother argued with you, a couple's bond lasts 100 days for every day they've been married. Do you really have to watch them all die before you're satisfied?" One accusation after another came crashing down on me like a sudden storm, leaving me no time at all to react. I narrowed my eyes and stood there without saying a word, letting them curse me. I looked like I'd been scared stupid, but inside I was sneering coldly. It was the same in my past life. Everything happened so suddenly that I was stunned by the corpses strewn all over the floor and had no idea what to do. Just as I rushed over, wanting to pick up my husband, my two dear sisters-in-law suddenly sprang out. Those two had always found fault with me for everything, stirring up trouble every day and nitpicking over the smallest things. When my husband and I ended up refusing to see each other, they had played a huge part in it too. Now, without even asking what had happened, they dumped all the blame on me. It was clearly Suey himself who refused to listen to advice and went bankrupt because of poor management, but someone who didn't know the truth would think I had forced them to their deaths. Besides, Suey and I had already been separated for more than a year. According to the previous agreement, it won't be long before we can formally end our marriage. It wasn't until I got a second life that I finally realized Suey had planned this all along, deliberately timing it so that before our marriage could be dissolved, his whole family would fake their deaths and slip away. Also, I would naturally become the sole debtor. The entire family had conspired to set everything up. First, all 7 of them suddenly cried out and claimed they were going to take their own lives, and then, once I was terrified out of my wits, they sent in the 2 sisters-in-law one after the other to bombard me with accusations, leaving me with no way to defend myself. Looking back now, everything was carefully chained together, never giving me even a moment to catch my breath. Also, I would have no time to think. 3. Their insults and false accusations kept coming, while Sushi and Sufei stood on either side of me, blocking my view completely. Shinyu, if it weren't for how much my brother loves you, I would have called the police today and had you arrested. Shinyu, give me back my brother, give me back my parents, you deserve a horrible death. By then, my parents had also arrived and saw the bodies strewn across the ground, along with all the blood. My mother, already timid by nature, collapsed onto the floor at once. My father was also on the verge of collapse, his face ashen. My heart ached for them. By now, my parents must have been terrified too. The Su family's scheme was truly ruthless. Anyone kind-hearted who saw a family of 7 die so tragically on the spot would be stunned. In my previous life, they all lost their composure and were utterly at the Su family's mercy. They had no idea they were walking step by step into the trap laid for them. At that thought, a subtle curve appeared at the corners of my mouth. It seemed even heaven could no longer stand Su Yi's atrocious deeds, and had actually given me another chance at life. Since that was the case, I absolutely couldn't waste this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I had to thoroughly clear away every bit of humiliation I had suffered. Through the strands of Sushi's hair, I saw Sui lying twisted on the ground in a ridiculous, absurd pose. The red substance that spurted from his mouth splattered all over the floor, an utterly shocking sight. In my past life, I was blinded by that vivid red and never once opened my eyes to look at it carefully. They had clearly died from poisoning, yet each of them had a rosy complexion and bright red lips, as if they were simply asleep. It wasn't until later, when I ended up working as a caregiver in the hospital, that I learned people who are poisoned to death don't just turn a sickly blue and have purple lips, they also foam at the mouth and their eyes bulge horribly. It was a truly terrifying sight. Unfortunately, back then I was just a well-behaved girl who grew up under my parents' protection, knowing nothing at all. I would get flustered and scared over the slightest thing, let alone something as huge as 7 lives. 4. Sui, how could you be so cruel? Why did you just leave me like this? I had originally wanted to squeeze out a few tears to put on an act. Just thinking about all those heartbreaking days in the past filled me with endless grievance, and tears poured down my face. Suddenly, I let out a wail and shoved Sophie aside, lunging toward Sui's body on the ground. I did this for one reason only. I wanted to find out whether Sui was really just pretending to be asleep or if he had actually been knocked unconscious by something. The two daughters of the Su family never expected me to suddenly go berserk and rush out. Sophie was knocked aside by me at once, and in the panic, she flailed her arms wildly, accidentally grabbing her pregnant older sister. The two of them were so terrified that they broke out in a cold sweat, and only after struggling to steady themselves together did we realize that I was already on my knees on the floor, both hands around Suyi's neck, shaking him hard up and down. Xinyu, have you lost your mind? My brother is already dead, and you're still treating him like this. Sushi was terrified. Just as she was about to rush over to stop me, she felt a sharp pain in her belly. He hurriedly covered his mouth and stood frozen in place, cursing furiously. I ignored him, tightening my grip around Suyi's neck while smashing his head against the ground. Thud, thud, thud. The dense barrage of impacts was enough to make one's scalp tingle. Just hearing it was enough to know how painful it was. Su-yi, you bastard, wake up, stop scaring me like this, wake up, now. I kept cursing non-stop, but to everyone else, I was simply in so much pain that I had momentarily lost my reason. By then, Su-fei finally snapped out of it and rushed over to pull me up. I didn't resist, a faint smile curling at the corners of my lowered lips. I had already figured it out completely. Su-yi had indeed taken some kind of sedative to intensify the effect and had fallen into a deep coma. The others must have been the same. I never expected those people to be so willing to spend this much just to set me up. Xinyu, you bastard, did you want to kill me? No. Did you want to humiliate my brother's corpse? 5. Sophie was so furious that she almost blurted it out, but she quickly covered it up and, seething with anger, slapped him with a sharp smack. Half of my face went red, leaving 5 distinct fingerprints, but I wasn't angry. Instead, I looked at Sophie and gave her a creepy smile. Sophie was so startled that she gasped sharply, her heart nearly stopping. I was crying and laughing at the same time, looking utterly insane, clearly so traumatized that my mind was a little off. Right then, a shrill wail of sirens sounded outside, and an ambulance came racing over in a hurry. Before it even came to a stop, a young male doctor in a white coat hurriedly jumped out and rushed straight into the lobby. Before anyone could give him orders, he went straight for the person lying on the ground and began examining them with practiced hands, dilated pupils, stopped heartbeat, no pulse, clear signs of death from poisoning. The male doctor looked grave as he rattled off a string of technical terms, clearly and decisively announcing Suyi's death. Seeing him arrive, a restrained hint of delight flickered across Sophie's alluring face. It wasn't until much later that I happened to learn this emergency doctor was named Wushuda, and that he was actually Sophie's boyfriend. But by then, the two families had long since cut off all contact, so no one knew about it. Wushuda's role must have been part of the Su family's long-laid scheme, and the most crucial piece of their absurd plan to fake their deaths and slip away. I sneered inwardly, then deliberately said anxiously to Wushuda, "Doctor, my husband probably isn't dead yet. Please, hurry and resuscitate him." Wushuda looked at me with a solemn expression. "Madam, please accept my condolences. This is a professional examination, and I'm absolutely certain I'm not wrong." As he spoke, he even shoved me aside with his hand. "Please step aside and don't interfere with my work. There may still be survivors among the remaining victims." Hearing his righteous words, all I felt was a cold sneer. It was this so-called noble emergency doctor who helped Suyi's family of 7 fabricate false death certificates, and it was what drove me completely into this vicious trap. I obediently moved aside and watched as he examined them one by one, then solemnly announced the deaths of all 7 members of the Su family. I secretly turned on my phone's recording function, then walked back over to Dr. Wu. "Doctor, please take another careful look. I think they're just unconscious, not dead. Please check again, I'm begging you." Tears streaming down my face, I grabbed Wushuda's arm and shook it hard. A flicker of guilt flashed across Wushuda's face, but luckily Su-fei rushed over in time to rescue him. "What do you mean? You killed off my whole family, and you still dare deny it?" She habitually smeared me with dirt, trying to trap me with words like that. "No, little sis, I really don't think your brother and the others are dead. Look, your brother's arm is completely limp, and I think I just saw Mom's eyelid move," I said anxiously, which startled Sophie and Susie. They quickly stepped in and stopped me. "Sister-in-law, you're mistaken. You must be so heartbroken that you're hallucinating. Besides, he's a licensed emergency doctor. How could he not even tell whether someone is alive or dead?" 6. In her desperation, Sophie even played the emotional card and, very unwillingly, called me sister-in-law. As Sophie spoke, she kept shooting Wushuda looks, urging him to hurry up and issue the death certificates so nothing unexpected would come up. Wushuda was sweating bullets. He quickly took out the death certificates he had prepared, and his pen began to fly as he filled them out. Death certificates were issued just like that, one after another, with such ease. A cold smile crept across my lips. In that short span of time, I had already figured out exactly how I was going to get my revenge. Sui wants to fake his death, does he? Fine. Then I'll make sure he really dies. The key to the Su family's scheme against me was this death certificate, and the key to my revenge was this same death certificate. With it in hand, I could, as his wife, openly and legitimately send them to the crematorium and burn them to ash. By then, Wu Shuda had already filled out the death certificates and handed them straight to me. These are their death certificates. Take a good look. In my previous life, this thick stack of death certificates was the last straw that crushed my fragile nerves. The pain became unbearable, and I fainted on the spot. Now, looking at this stack of death certificates, I was over the moon. This was the scepter leading me down the path of revenge, the sharpest sword in my hand. No, this can't be real. You're lying to me, aren't you, Doctor? Could you please check again and make sure you didn't make a mistake? To drive the point home and completely trap Wu Shuda, I grabbed his arm again and pretended to cry out. Cold sweat broke out on Wu Shuda's forehead, and he hurriedly reached out to pull my arm away. He didn't even dare look at me, and shouted guiltily, "What nonsense are you talking about? How could I have prescribed the wrong one? That's absolutely impossible." Sophie and Susie quickly came over to hold me back. "Sis-in-law, you're devastated, so don't make things hard for the doctor." That was exactly what I wanted Wu Shuda to say, so I obediently let go of his arm. So many people died at once. I'm afraid I won't be able to explain it clearly later. Maybe we should call the police first. I looked terrified, scaring Su Qian and Su Fei so badly they almost lost their minds. No way, they blurted it out almost at the same time. If the police came, wouldn't their act of pretending the whole family of 7 was dead be exposed? Why, they died in my house. What if you later say I murdered them? What am I supposed to do? I asked deliberately, pretending not to understand. How could that be? Sis-in-law, we all know they committed suicide. There are only 2 of us left in the Su family now, who would stick their nose in and try to frame you. Su Fei racked her brains to explain, while Su Qian was even more direct. She pointed at me and started cursing. "Xin Yu, what do you mean by that? They've already died. Such a miserable death, and you still want the police to come and cut them open. How can you be so heartless?" Under that barrage of righteous talk, I immediately fell silent. If that's the case, then we won't wait either. 7. I said this as I took out my phone and directly dialed a number. "Hello, crematorium. There's been a sudden major mass poisoning incident here. 7 people need to be picked up right away." Yes, the death certificates have already been issued. All the family members are here, and no one has any objections. The address is 128 Jianglin Road. Don't ask me how I knew the crematorium's phone number. Back when I was down on my luck and working odd jobs, I even worked as a corpse carrier at a crematorium. The pay there was especially high, and nobody else wanted to do it. At first, Su Shi and Su Fei both looked completely baffled, not knowing what I was trying to do. When they heard this, the 2 of them finally realized that this vicious woman was trying to burn their whole family alive. "No, tell them not to come right now," Sophie yelled at me, her face twisted with anger. I didn't even pay her any attention and hung up with a snap. She turned to look at me and asked, confused, "Little sis, why? Our family died such a horrible death. I just can't stand it. Do you really want them to keep lying on the floor like this?" "No, that's not what I meant." Sophie was instantly at a loss for words, not knowing how to go on, and quickly shot Susie a pleading look for help. Susie quietly pointed at the water glass, and Sophie immediately got it, quickly pretending to be concerned as she said, "Sister-in-law, you're overwhelmed with grief, but you still need to take care of yourself. I'll get you a glass of water." As she said that, she ran off to get the water glass, while Susie hurriedly blocked my view. "Xin Yu, don't rush this. We're here too, as daughters of the Su family. How could we just stand by and do nothing?" Just then, Su Fei came over carrying a glass of water, and said in a gentle voice, "Sister-in-law, have some hot water to soothe your throat. You're the only family we have left, so you mustn't let anything happen to you." If I hadn't known the truth, I would have been deeply moved. I almost thought my sister-in-law had finally started treating me like one of the family. I was sure there was something wrong with this glass of water. It must have been their backup plan, prepared long ago. In my previous life, I had let myself down and fainted too early, never giving them the chance to use this trick. Trembling, I took the glass and murmured my thanks. "Thank you, little sister." then I slowly lifted the glass to my lips. Through the reflection on the side of the glass, I could clearly see the expectant looks in the Sioux sisters' eyes, along with the eerie smiles on their lips. I let out a cold laugh to myself, and at that moment my hand slipped. The cup crashed to the floor with a sharp crack and instantly shattered into pieces. What do you mean? Sophie flew into a rage, her eyes blazing as if she wanted nothing more than to punch me unconscious. This woman was like a cockroach, no matter what, she just wouldn't stay down. Sorry, I didn't mean to. My hands are shaking badly, looking weak and frail. I kept apologizing, and Susie quickly grabbed hold of her sister, afraid of making me suspicious. Just then, the sound of a car came from outside, and a group of staff members walked in. Hello, we're from the crematorium. Are these bodies on the floor the ones you want us to handle? I lifted a face full of sorrow and nodded weakly. Yes, these are their death certificates. They were issued by this emergency room doctor. By all rights, Wu Daming should have left immediately after issuing the death certificate, but to cooperate with Sophie, he forced himself to stay put. No, they can't be taken away yet. Su Qian was frantic. The crematorium staff froze. Does this mean the police still need to get involved? After all, it was 7 lives, and they were all unnatural deaths. They didn't dare take it lightly. No, that's not it. They really did die by suicide after taking poison because the company went bankrupt. I'm their daughter. There's nothing wrong here. Afraid they would make a fuss and call the police, Su Qian hurriedly said. The person in charge frowned. If there's really nothing wrong, and you insist on keeping them here, then since it's the peak of summer, I'll have no choice but to ask the public health department to step in. No. The 2 sisters of the Su family kept waving their hands. This was one thing after another. Everything had clearly been planned, so how had it suddenly turned into such a mess? I'm the deceased's wife and daughter-in-law. Just take him away now. At worst, leave him at the crematorium first and deal with the memorial service later. Seeing that the Su sisters were already so anxious they were about to faint, my words were nothing less than a ray of hope. The 2 of them exchanged a glance and felt that this was fine for now, as long as he wasn't cremated immediately. Yes, we agree to have him taken away now too. Hearing that, a subtle smile tugged at the corners of my lips. Once he's at the crematorium, I know that process better than anyone, and from then on, it won't be up to you. After getting the approval of all the family members, the crematorium staff wasted no time and immediately began moving the body. By the way, please send an immediate family member along with the vehicle. We still have some paperwork to handle. After the body had been loaded, the person in charge came over to ask. As soon as Sushi heard that, she hurriedly said I should go. She didn't argue with me. Instead, she took my hand and gave me a long list of reminders. Big sister, I'm leaving Mom, Dad, and Sui in your care. You'll also need to help arrange the memorial service. As she said that, she started crying again, eyes brimming with tears as she covered her face. Just as the car was about to start, Sushi hurriedly broke free from my arm and headed toward it, and I nonchalantly stuck out my foot. Ouch. Sushi, hurrying along, lost her footing and fell to the ground. She immediately clutched her stomach and cried out in pain. Sis, what's wrong? Sufei was terrified and rushed over to help me up, but Sushi was in so much pain she couldn't even straighten her back. Oh no, could this be a miscarriage? Hurry and take her to the hospital. There's an ambulance right here. Isn't there? I called out in feigned concern. Yes, Wu Shude, come quickly and carry my eldest sister onto the ambulance. In her panic, Sufei even forgot to hide the fact that I knew the doctor. Sushi was frantic. She grabbed Sufei's hand tightly and kept shooting me frantic looks. Sufei, why don't you go to the crematorium in my place? Okay, don't worry. I've got Mom and Dad covered. That woman won't be able to stir up any trouble. Sufei wore a vicious look. In her eyes, I was just a useless sweet little pushover, easy to take advantage of however she pleased. Watching the ambulance speed away, I curled my lips into a smile. Among the Su sisters, only Sushi had any brains. Sufei was nothing but a blustering paper tiger, easy to deal with. As the crematorium kept urging them on, Sufei scrambled up into a hearse in a panic while I took my time getting into the last vehicle. The person being transported in that vehicle was my husband, Su E9. Looking at that face in sleep, I had to admit he really was quite easy on the eyes. I'm completely superficial when it comes to looks, so back then I had absolutely no resistance to his deliberate flattery and pursuit. Thinking about it now, the Su family had long since set their sights on the Shin family's assets. I looked at the person in charge sitting in front of us. Hello. May I ask what procedures are needed if I want to arrange cremation for them as soon as possible? I continued, explaining to him, with something this Serious, I'm worried it might attract those reporters. By then, your crematorium probably wouldn't want to be disturbed either, right? The memorial service can also be held after the cremation. The person in charge nodded, indicating understanding. Normally, you'd probably be scheduled for tomorrow, but given the special circumstances, if you go through the special procedure, it can be arranged immediately. I immediately nodded in understanding. They all took poison, and I don't want to see them looking this miserable. Let's go through the special procedure, whatever the cost, it's fine. The person in charge immediately lit up. This was a big deal. He immediately called the manager, and sure enough, it was confirmed very quickly. Mrs. Shen, how about this? We'll put you on the fast track. The cremation can start an hour from now, and the fee is 15,000 per person. Does that work for you? An hour? Of course that wouldn't do. The longer it dragged on, the more variables there would be. I made up my mind on the spot. And as I said it, I casually handed the man a stack of cash. How about this? If you start cremation right away, I'll add another 10,000 per person. You know my sister-in-law has run into trouble, and I need to hurry back to take care of her. Hearing that the price had doubled and that he'd pocketed another private side payment, the person in charge gritted his teeth. Mrs. Shen, please wait a moment. I'll talk to the manager again. I nodded. I wasn't worried at all. They would definitely agree. Sure enough, not long after, the other side sent back a reply, agreeing to cremate them right away. I was practically over the moon inside, but I pointed at my husband with a sorrowful look on my face and said, my husband has always cared a lot about his appearance, and now he looks like this. I'm sure he wouldn't want it either. Could he go first? The person in charge gave me a sympathetic glance. It seemed like their relationship had been pretty good, and having the whole family die like this really was tragic. Besides, something this minor was nothing to him. No problem. The funeral van drove all the way to the crematorium on the outskirts. Looking at the familiar building in front of me, I couldn't help but feel deeply emotional. This time, I will personally send Shani to hell. From now on, I'll live a happy, peaceful life, and I'll never end up in a place like this carrying corpses again. I was already familiar with the crematorium procedures, so I went straight to the incinerator. Meanwhile, Sophie was still naively following along to handle the paperwork. Watching Suyi's body slowly being pushed in, I felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction. Suyi, aren't you pretending to be dead? Fine, I'll play along. I pretended to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth, only to notice his eyelids twitch slightly. Looks like the sedative was about to wear off. Good thing I arranged everything in time, or he would have just gotten up. I knew that by now. He was already in a half-conscious state and could hear what I was saying, so I deliberately leaned down and whispered softly into his ear, Sui, I know you're faking it, but it doesn't matter, I'll send you off myself, don't worry. 10. Sure enough, I managed to see the other person's finger twitch slightly at that moment. His heart must have felt just as torn apart as mine had back then. Watching him slowly being pushed into the cremation chamber, I felt a strange sense of relief, as if I had stepped out of another world. Just as the staff was about to press the button, a frantic shout came from outside the door. No, wait, don't cremate him yet. It was Sophie's voice. Then the door was smashed open with a loud bang, and everyone turned around in shock. I reacted quickly and seized the only chance, pressing the button at once. We'd already come this far. How could I possibly let Sui have another chance at coming back to life? Stop, don't cremate him yet. Sophie shouted at the top of her lungs. Hair disheveled and drenched in sweat, the staff all stared at me in shock. No one noticed that inside the cremation chamber, Sui was thrashing his arms and legs, struggling desperately, only to be swallowed up by the flames in an instant. This scene was unbelievably satisfying to watch. It seems Suyi's sedative has completely worn off, and being burned alive while fully conscious is truly gratifying. No, brother, clearly, Sophie, standing before the cremation furnace, saw the scene too and let out a shrill, anguished cry. She struggled toward the cremation furnace, only to be stopped by the staff. Miss Sue, please accept our condolences. We understand your pain, but you can't disrupt our work. The staff said this with righteous conviction. No, my brother isn't dead yet. Stop right now. The staff turned around but saw nothing, and said unhappily, Miss Sue, please don't talk nonsense. We could never burn a living person. Just then, hurried, stumbling footsteps sounded at the doorway. Wait, my son isn't dead yet. An old woman stumbled in a sorry state, probably still not fully awake from the sedative. She was even having trouble staying on her feet. A corpse coming back to life in broad daylight scared even the crematorium staff senseless, and screams broke out all at once. Seeing the blazing flames inside the incinerator, the old woman collapsed to the floor. Then she shot me a look full of hatred. "You vicious woman, you burned my son alive, Mom." The doctor had already issued a death certificate. "The fact that you could come back to life can only be described as a miracle," I explained tearfully. I felt deeply regretful, never expecting this old woman to be so physically resilient. If it had been any later, she would have already been in the incinerator, but maybe this was for the best, having to watch her own son die with her own eyes, and spending the rest of her life buried under all that debt would actually be worse than death. "Son, how could you die such a tragic death, you vile woman? This is clearly murder." The old woman had just been drugged and overwhelmed, and now, upon waking to such a huge shock, she could no longer hold herself together and fainted on the spot. Sophie was terrified too. She quickly picked up her mother, and the scene instantly descended into chaos because of this unexpected twist. The others could no longer continue with the cremation, but for me, that no longer mattered. I called my father right away. "Dad, listen to me. The Sui family is faking their deaths. They owe 100 million in loan shark debt and want me to take the fall. I only figured all this out 10 years later in my previous life, but this time, I won't let it happen again. Several million of it is money they just borrowed, planning to spend it on their own indulgences. Get someone to check immediately and transfer the money back." My father had always been a fairly well-known local businessman. If I hadn't fallen for a gold digger and let him swindle away a lot of our money, it wasn't as if they'd end up unable to pay back even the 100 million usurious loan. Hearing what I said, he snapped awake at once. Don't worry, I'll take care of this right away." After entrusting the matter to my father, I waited calmly for the police to arrive. I was going to use this time to keep everyone in the Su family tied up, leaving them no chance to transfer the money. Since human lives were at stake, the police soon arrived at the scene, and after some investigation, the Su family's staged mass poisoning could no longer be covered up. It turned out that Sui really had been burned alive. The crematorium, however, bore no responsibility, because everything had followed procedure. Besides, the situation was chaotic at the time, and no one knew who had actually pressed the button. The matter of Wu Shuda and the Su family colluding to issue a fake certificate could no longer be hidden, and the recording I had in my hands perfectly cleared me of any responsibility. "You bastard. Why did you forge a fake death certificate? Why did you kill my husband? He was still so young." I cut in first and lunged at Wu Shuda, beating him. "It wasn't me. It was all Sufei who made me do it. I was forced into it too." Realizing his medical career was completely over and that he was going to prison, Wu Shuda glared at Sufei with deep resentment, determined to drag her down with him no matter what. "You bastard. It was all your rotten idea. If it weren't for you, how would our family have come up with something like this? And how could we have killed my brother?" Sufei was already a thoughtless hothead. The moment she opened her mouth, she started cursing and spilled everything. Standing beside them, I was in tears, looking pitiful and helpless. "You people killed my husband. I can play the same game of framing others and putting on that fake sweet act too. From start to finish, I was just a poor victim who knew nothing, being toyed with by their whole family. As for the extra money I privately paid to cut in line, the crematorium staff didn't dare say a word. They wanted to distance themselves from any blame. Aside from Sui, the rest of the Su family members were all rescued, but once they were out of the hospital, they would be facing an even more humiliating situation. Usury debts of up to 100 million, along with charges of colluding to fake their deaths to escape responsibility, falsifying company accounts, and more. Susie was already at risk of a miscarriage. And then she heard about all the messes happening at home. In her anger and anxiety, the baby was stillborn, and not only was Wu Shuda stripped of his medical license, he was also prosecuted for issuing fake certificates and attempted murder, and Sophie was thrown in jail for helping plan it all. After the fact, when responsibility was assigned, there were still 7 debtors in the company, myself included. I was the only one who had never been involved in any operations, and the court, at its discretion, assigned me a debt of 10 million. Meanwhile, Mr. Shin immediately tracked down 50 million from Su Yi's secret account. What's funniest is that this secret account was opened in my name. I didn't even have to change it. On the day Su Yi was laid to rest, a light rain fell without end. The Su family was either under arrest or sick in bed, and not a single person came to see him off. I stood quietly before his tombstone with a black umbrella in hand, my gaze calm and distant. "Su Yi, rest easy. I'll spend the remaining 40 million well, for you." A faint, satisfied smile slowly surfaced in my eyes. "I'll find someone I love, have 2 adorable children, and enjoy a happy family life with my parents." Taking in all the beautiful scenery this world has to offer, looking at the black and white photo on the tombstone, I murmured softly, "So this is all your own doing. You brought this upon yourself." when the wicked do evil, they reap what they sow. I let out a cold laugh and loosened my grip, letting the black umbrella in my hand blow away, as if carrying off all the hardships of my past life with it. The unbearable years gone by would never again become my nightmare. I lifted my head. After the rain, the sky cleared, a beam of brilliant sunlight fell across my stunning profile. I flashed a bright smile and turned to walk briskly toward my parents in the distance. A brand new life was waiting for me there. The end. That's it for the first story. Don't go anywhere. The next one is even more exciting. After being reborn, I quietly gave away Song Jiqing's job, all because in my previous life, Song Jiqing made me hand my job over to his widowed sister-in-law. He took his sister-in-law and niece to the city to work and study, and with no job, I could only stay in the countryside to raise our daughter. With no man in the family, my daughter was targeted by local thugs and had no choice but to drop out of school. I went to the city to ask Song Jiqing for help, but he said he was busy. He turned around and celebrated with his widowed sister-in-law as they congratulated their niece on getting into a top university. Meanwhile, I had just received the news that my daughter had jumped into a river, and I died of shock on the spot. 1. My eldest brother passed away, and my sister-in-law and niece are left with no one to rely on. I have to help them, just like in my previous life. Song Jiqing was persuading me to give my job to his widowed sister-in-law. At that time, we had just become official employees of the steel mill. I said, I'm willing to sign it, but the scar on my arm has started itching again. Can you go get the ointment for me? My scar was from staying up late reading at night, getting so tired that I dozed off and got burned by the oil lamp. I worked just as hard as Song Jiqing did to get into the steel mill. He, on the other hand, only needed to focus on studying. A trace of guilt flashed across Song Jiqing's eyes while he got up. I hurriedly filled in Song Jiqing's name in the applicant field and folded up the application form. Song Jiqing, since you pity your widowed sister-in-law for having no one to rely on, then I'll do you this favor and help you live up to your noble sense of justice. Seeing that I had signed, Song Jiqing let out a breath of relief and immediately signed his own name. A job transfer requires both husband and wife to sign together. I quickly put the application form away, slipped it into an envelope, and sealed it with wax. Song Jiqing didn't suspect a thing. After all, he had once been my whole world, and I had obeyed him in almost everything. He looked out the window. Shu Qing, since it's still early, take the application form into the city. That way, it won't delay me and sister-in-law from heading to the city to check in for work early. I met his expectant gaze and said, okay. Since Song Jiqing was in such a hurry, I might as well give him what he wanted. Once I got to the city, I handed the application form to the factory director. Seeing the stamp on the application, I finally felt at ease. This time around, it was finally Song Jiqing's turn to lose his job and his chance to come to the city. In my previous life, after Song Jiqing went to work in the city, he also promised to bring the two of us over later. He said business at the factory wasn't doing well and the pay was low, so he asked me to grow more grain at home and sell it to help support the family. Security in the village was only average, and my daughter was always being harassed by local thugs, leaving her no time to study. I wanted Song Jiqing to transfer our daughter to a school in the city, but he said Lin Feng's daughter was about to take an exam. He needed to tutor her and had no time to look after our daughter, so he told us to wait a little longer. I waited and waited, only for my daughter to fall into depression and take her own life, while I worked myself into illness. In this life, my daughter and I would live well in the city. As soon as I got home, I heard Lin Feng's voice. Jiqing, won't this be a little too hard on my sister-in-law? After all, working at the steel plant is easy, and she can stay in the city too. Ah, it's all your big brother's fault for dying so young. Otherwise I wouldn't be such a burden to the two of you. Song Jiqing's eyes were full of sympathy. Sister-in-law, don't worry, Shu Qing is used to doing hard labor in the countryside. You're different from her. You and your niece have never suffered while living with Big Brother. I promise that even with Big Brother gone, you'll still be able to live well. My heart skipped a beat because Song Jiqing was frail. I took on most of the farm work and housework. Even my daughter, at such a young age, had learned to cook and sweep, while Song Jiqing only had to teach at the village school every day. We took pity on Song Jiqing, but in his mouth, it became the reason we should stay in the countryside and endure hardship. Ridiculous and absurd. Yet in my previous life, I agreed with what he said, only to waste my own life and my daughter's. I don't know what else Song Jiqing said, but Lin Feng covered her mouth and laughed, then looked up and saw me standing at the door. Lin Feng always carried a sense of superiority in front of me. She was fashionable and elegant, while I looked rough and worn. Lin Feng waved at me. Sister-in-law, I'll treasure this job. Please don't hold a grudge against Jiqing. Song Jiqing immediately looked at me. Nervously, ever since Song Jiqing's older brother died of illness and the family fortune was wiped out, forcing Lin Feng and her daughter to move back to the countryside from the city, he had been repeatedly warning me and lecturing me. He said his sister-in-law was a city woman, not some sharp-tongued village wife, and told me to mind my manners. I smiled. It's all right, this is what we should do, now that Big Brother is gone. We can't let you suffer for it. What a joke, it's not like I was the one who gave up the job. Anyone can say nice things too. I probably didn't show the anger and misery she had expected, and Lin Feng's smile froze on her face. Song Jiqing looked at me approvingly. Shu Qing, it seems you've also learned your sister-in-law's gracious way of dealing with people these days. You should really learn from her. Song Jiqing was handsome and refined, and he spoke politely and eloquently. In the past, if he praised me, I would blush with shyness. Now, it only sounded disgusting and grating. Suddenly, a child's crying and fussing came from inside the room. We ran over and found our 7-year-old daughter crying, clutching a crushed pencil case. Lin Feng's daughter, Qian, was standing off to the side with a look of defiance on her face. Although Qian was the same age as my daughter, she was a head taller. I hurriedly asked my daughter what had happened. My daughter pointed at Qian. She wanted my pencil case, and when I wouldn't give it to her, she stepped on it. The more my daughter spoke, the more aggrieved she became, and she cried again. Mom, this was my only pencil case. Qian put her hands on her hips. My mom said that since you're staying in the village to go to school anyway, you don't need such a fancy pencil case. Lin Feng looked a little embarrassed and hurried to smooth things over. Kids don't know any better. I'll give her a good talking to later. Song Jiqing frowned and looked at his daughter, his voice stern. Sharu, didn't I teach you to give way to your older sister? She's a guest. What you did was wrong. My daughter lowered her head. At a loss, I immediately went over to my daughter and opened my backpack. Good girl, that pencil case is too old, so we don't want it. Mom bought you a new school bag and pencil case. Seeing the things I was holding, my daughter finally broke into a smile through her tears. Song Jiqing frowned and blamed me. You shouldn't be so extravagant. Qian wasn't wrong. Kids studying in the countryside really don't need such good things. Besides, you should have bought 2 sets and brought one for Qian too. He then turned to my daughter. Sharu, do you remember what Dad told you before? We should to your sister. She's a guest. Hurry up and give the new school bag and supplies to your sister. Then apologize to her. That will make you a good girl. My daughter's little face fell at once, and the light in her eyes went out too. Qian was beaming with smug satisfaction, already grinning as she reached out her hand toward me. Lin Feng said it wasn't right while telling Qian to thank her little uncle. The heavy look of disappointment and helplessness on my daughter's face made my heart tighten at once. Ever since Lin Feng and her daughter came back to the countryside, Song Jiqing had been favoring them in every way. Meat and grain coupons had to be set aside for them first, while my daughter and I could only eat wild greens and sweet potatoes. Even when there was meat now and then, it was the fatty cuts Lin Feng thought were too greasy. I took them home, rendered the fat, and used it for cooking. Song Jiqing always had an excuse. He said, they're mother and daughter from the city, they're not used to the plain fare in the countryside. We country folks can just make do. I had always swallowed my anger and kept quiet, with me setting such a bad example. My daughter also became timid and weak, too afraid to stand up for her own interests. That also made her the kind of person who kept everything bottled up inside and eventually led her to a dead end. Thinking of my daughter's miserable past life, a surge of anger rushed to my head. I grabbed the bowl on the table and hurled it at Song Jiqing's face and body with all my might. Move your damn ass, move. Since you care so much about your sister-in-law and niece, why don't you just give your life to your big brother? Song Jiqing was caught off guard and forgot to dodge. After all, I had always spoken in a soft, gentle voice before, let alone ever laid a hand on anyone. Even after smashing the bowl, I still didn't feel better, so I simply flipped the table over. Such a huge commotion drew the neighbors over to watch. I pinched my own thigh, and tears poured out in an instant. Aunties, I don't want to live anymore. My man doesn't care about this family at all. Song Jiqing's temple was already swollen, making him look like the one at a disadvantage, but I was even more pitiful than he was. Crying, I told them how Song Jiqing kept sending all the good things from our home over to his sister-in-law's place. Even the little over 1,000 yuan we had saved at home was taken by him and given to Lin Feng and her daughter. He said, sister-in-law is from the city, so she must feel too awkward to ask. We should take the initiative to help them. So he took the money and handed it over to her willingly. The next day, Lin Feng and her daughter were dressed in completely new clothes. Meanwhile, My daughter and I were still wearing faded cotton blouses, wearing her new dress. Qian deliberately spun around in front of my daughter and said she was a little princess, while my daughter could only be a maid beside the princess, and my daughter was gloomy for several days because of it. When money came up, Song Jiqing lowered his head guiltily. The neighbors all shook their heads. It's only normal to help out after your older brother is gone, but this is not the way. If it were my husband who took the money, I won't stop until I've made this a complete mess. Exactly, men do the heavy labor, while women in your family are busy running around inside and out. They've spared you from hardship, and this is how you repay your wife. As the village schoolteacher, Song Jiqing usually carried himself with an air of superiority, but now that everyone was pointing and staring at him, his face instantly turned beet red. Lin Feng tried to offer an awkward explanation, but no one was listening to her. Anyone with an eye could tell at a glance that mother and daughter were well-fed and fair-skinned, while my daughter and I were gaunt and yellow-faced. It was obvious we hadn't been eating from the same pot. After the neighbors had dispersed, Song Jiqing covered his swollen face and looked at me pitifully. Shuqing, I'm in so much pain. Back then, he got his hand cut while cutting wheat, and I felt sorry for him for a long time. I never let him go out to work in the fields again. Even our daughter, like a little grown-up, would blow on it for him. Now, when he saw the coldness in my eyes, his body couldn't help but tremble. Guilt showed in his eyes. Shuqing, I know I've made you and our daughter suffer lately. My sister-in-law has lost her support, and my niece has lost her father. They've never had to endure hardship before. Can't you be a little understanding of them? Understand them. Does being able to endure hardship mean you have to keep enduring it forever? Lin Feng and her niece used to live a life of comfort and privilege. Now that they've fallen on hard times, they are pitiful. But their misery wasn't caused by me. I still remember the scene I saw before I died. I forced myself to push through my discomfort and went into the city to find Song Jiqing. I told him our daughter had been bullied and wanted to drop out of school. Song Jiqing, however, looked impatient. A fly doesn't land on an uncracked egg. She can't even keep herself in check. Who else is she going to blame? Go back now. I still have important things to do. The next moment, through the restaurant's glass window, I saw Song Jiqing and Lin Feng taking Qian from table to table, toasting the guests. Everyone offered their congratulations. Director Song, your daughter really takes after her father. She got into a top university. She has a bright future ahead of her. Song Jiqing and Lin Feng exchanged a glance, their pride practically overflowing. Just then, people from the village found me. Aunt Lu, hurry home, your daughter jumped into the river. They pulled her out, but she's not breathing anymore. In an instant, everything went black before my eyes, and all sound around me vanished. Ahead of me was a scene of clinking glasses and lavish, elegant revelry, and behind me, I was swallowed by an immense night. I took a deep breath, finally pulling myself out of the painful memories of my past life, for I held my daughter close, then said sternly to Qian, you broke your sister's thing. You need to apologize. Qian lifted her chin defiantly. I won't apologize. I didn't do anything wrong. Cheru suddenly reached out, snatched the hair bow from Qian's head, and quickly stomped on it under her foot. She spread her little hands. Mom, we're even now. I don't need her apology anymore. This was the first time Cheru had learned to fight back, and I felt a flicker of relief. If reason doesn't work, other methods can be used. Qian flew into a rage, stamping her feet in frustration. Lin Feng hugged Qian protectively, her expression both stubborn and sorrowful. Qian and I should have gone with her father back then. We shouldn't have become a burden to you, causing you two to fight over us. Qian was also crying and calling for her dad, saying she was a fatherless child who got bullied. The mother and daughter acted as if they had suffered the greatest injustice. One hung her head and wiped away tears, the other wailed uncontrollably. Song Jiqing's eyes instantly reddened. He turned and glared at me fiercely. Lu Shuqing, when will you stop? Qian is just a child. Did you have to make such a scene? I'm about to leave for the city, and you're still acting like some country shrew. How are we supposed to get along from now on? I looked at him coldly. Then let's get a divorce. Song Jiqing's breath hitched, and he stared at me in disbelief. After all, I used to care for him so much. Whenever we had a disagreement, I was always the one to make up with him. He let out a cold laugh. Fine, don't come crying to me later. My daughter watched Song Jiqing walk away, carrying Qian in his arms, her expression desolate. She didn't yet understand what divorce meant. She only knew her father had abandoned her time and again, always putting her feelings last. I kissed her forehead. If someone makes you angry and sad, then we simply don't need them anymore. My daughter nodded, though she didn't fully grasp it. Some storms she might have to weather herself. but I would be her shelter through every one of them. The main room door remained quiet all night. It wasn't until morning that Song Jicheng returned from next door. He kept his head down, his manner awkward. Qian was frightened. She kept calling for her dad, so I stayed with her all night. My daughter and I were sitting at the table, eating breakfast. In the past, the eggs were always saved for Song Jicheng. I used to think he was the pillar of this household, that if he was well, our whole family would be well. My daughter and I each have an egg now. It smells wonderful. I stuffed the egg into my mouth without saying a word. My indifference seemed to anger Song Jicheng. His face darkened with annoyance. Don't you start spreading rumors and wild ideas like those country folk, he said. Ever since Lin Feng and her daughter arrived, country folk has been the only thing Song Jicheng talks about, but luckily for him, he's not going to the city either. He's destined to be the very country folk he looks down on for the rest of his life. I reminded him, don't forget to file the divorce papers. 5. Song Jicheng's expression changed, and he then let out a sigh. Shuqing, I know I've been neglecting you and our daughter this month, and I apologize. I know you're just saying you want a divorce out of anger. As for sister-in-law and the others, they're a widow and an orphan. I can't just abandon them. You're my wife. You should understand and support me. I cut him off. Aren't you all moving to the city? We'll get a divorce. You and Lin Feng can get married, and that way you can add Qian to your household registration. Then she'll be eligible to attend the steel mills affiliated school. Song Jicheng looked hesitant. That doesn't seem right. Lin Feng, who had been hiding outside the door, rushed in, her eyes pleading. Jicheng, for Qian's sake, just ask your wife to bear with this for a little while. Once Qian is enrolled, the two of you can just remarry. Following Lin Feng's cue, Qian also clung to Song Jicheng's leg. Uncle, I want to go to the best primary school in the city. I promised my dad I would study hard. It was his dying wish. The hesitation on Song Jicheng's face vanished instantly, as if steeling himself with great resolve. He looked at me with guilt once more. Shuqing, once everything is settled, we'll remarry. I sneered inwardly. If Song Jicheng had bothered to ask around, he'd have known the steel mills affiliated school didn't require such complicated procedures, but when it came to matters concerning Lin Feng and her daughter, he was always in too much of a hurry. With Lin Feng pushing things along, Song Jicheng and I smoothly obtained our divorce papers. Our daughter was to stay with me, probably thinking it was just a sham divorce. Song Jicheng raised no objections. I packed clothes for myself and my daughter, preparing to report to the steel mill ahead of schedule. Song Jicheng looked at my assortment of luggage, utterly bewildered. It's just a temporary arrangement. Why are you packing everything up? I blinked. I'm taking Xiaoru to stay with my parents for a few extra days. Song Jicheng breathed a sigh of relief. You've been a bit on edge lately. Getting away will do you good. Lin Feng, however, looked quite pleased. Jicheng, we should really start packing. We'll be moving to the city in a few days, and I just can't get used to anything out here in the countryside. As she spoke, Lin Feng shot me a smug glance. I looked back at her with a faint, ambiguous smile, which seemed to irritate her. She leaned closer, her expression a mix of pity and self-satisfaction. We were never cut from the same cloth. My daughter will be a city girl, while you and your mother will always be country folk. I pretended to be hard of hearing and raised my voice. Sister-in-law, you say we country folk are dirty, but the rice and bread you eat are all grown by us. How can you stomach it, Continuation of line 7. Lin Feng's face flushed crimson with shame, and she turned to retreat into the house. Song Jicheng seemed lost in thought for a moment before looking at me. Shuqing, you've changed so much lately. I hardly recognize you. As he spoke and reached for my hand, I instinctively stepped back. A flicker of hurt passed through his eyes. I'll take you back to your parents' place later. It's about to rain, and you ride your bike too slowly. I was startled. I hadn't actually planned on going back to my parents' house. My parents are very traditional. If they found out about the divorce, there would be a huge scene. I was just trying to think of an excuse to refuse when Qian came clattering into the room. Uncle, I want to go to town to buy apples. We finished the ones you bought us the day before yesterday. Mom says an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Qian tugged on Song Jicheng's arm, acting coquettishly. 6. Song Jicheng turned his head away somewhat awkwardly. Last month, I had asked him to buy some discounted fruit because our daughter had been a bit constipated. I heard eating fruit can help, but he said folks from the countryside just need to drink more water, and shouldn't be so fussy. Song Jicheng glanced at me, as if wanting to explain. Shuqing, Qian is used to having it. Don't worry, when I go into town, I waved my hand, cutting him off. Go buy it. I understand. He and I are divorced. What he does Is none of my business. Qian, humming a tune, sat on the back of Song Jiqing's bicycle and stuck her tongue out at my daughter. This princess is going to eat lots of fruit, the maid gets none. Song Jiqing looked at our daughter with an apologetic expression, seeming to want to say something. My daughter turned her head away and declared loudly, I don't want to be a princess, I'm going to be a queen, and my mom will buy me plenty of fruit. I don't need anyone else's. Song Jiqing's expression faltered for a moment. The daughter who used to call him daddy all the time had now become a stranger. A wounded look flashed across his face. He murmured, she's still young, she'll understand when she's older. He looked at me as if seeking my approval. I turned and went back inside. Ignoring him, I took my daughter to the city she had been dreaming of. Reporting for work early made the factory director very pleased. It was perfect timing, as a group of staff had gone out for training, leaving them quite short-handed with me as a point of comparison. His impression of Lin Feng soured somewhat. Both Song Jiqing and I had originally passed the exam for accounting positions. I have a good head for numbers and am quite meticulous. After just a few days on the job, I had already sorted out a batch of messy accounts. The factory manager was full of praise for me and even advanced me a month's salary. I also managed to secure a single dormitory room and bought my daughter several pretty outfits. She used to watch longingly as Qian wore a different one every day. Now she can do the same. From now on, she'll have all that and more. I'm going to let her grow up in happiness. She won't follow the same path as her past life. A few days later, I ran into Song Jiqing near the steel mill. He and Lin Feng were walking with Qian between them, holding her hands and chatting happily, looking for all the world like a family of three. When he saw me, Song Jiqing quickly let go of her hand. He forced a smile and said, we're here to report for duty at the steel mill today, and we thought we'd pick up a few things while we're here. Lin Feng gave me a once-over, a flash of resentment in her eyes. I was wearing a Dacron shirt with black bell-bottoms, an outfit no less stylish than the Cheongsam dress Lin Feng had on. She put on a show of being earnestly concerned. So you came to the city to buy clothes? Sister-in-law, you'll need to be more frugal living in the countryside from now on. After all, Gigi is the only one working in the city, and the pressure on him is no small thing. It was only then that Song Gigi noticed my outfit. He shook his head. Shuqing, I know you and the child will have a tougher time in the countryside. It's understandable you'd want to buy some nice clothes. Let's not dwell on who was right or wrong about what happened recently. The point is, you need to go back to the countryside soon. It's not right for the house to be empty. The absurdity of it. Song Gigi thought I needed his permission to dress a little better. I said nothing. 7. Song Gigi, however, mistook my silence for agreement and visibly relaxed. Once I get my job situation sorted out, I'll come back to see you all. Make sure the house is cleaned up, so Qian can come to the countryside to play during summer vacation. Oh, and, sis-in-law likes tomatoes and cucumbers. Plant more of them this year. I'll swing by to pick some up when I have time. Song Jiqing was about to say something more, but Lin Feng pulled him back. It's almost 8. We need to report to the factory. As she spoke, Lin Feng then put on a deliberately troubled look and glanced at me. Sis, both Jiqing and I have jobs to get to, not like you with all the time in the world, so we can't stay here chatting with you. Song Jiqing also urged me, you should head home. This isn't the right place for you. I just smiled, walked ahead of them, and stepped right through the steel mill's main gate. The elderly security guard greeted me politely. Good morning, Accountant Liu. Song Jiqing hurriedly straightened his appearance, bowed his head, and echoed, good morning, Accountant Liu. After a long moment with no response, Song Jiqing looked around, puzzled. They were met with my enigmatic, half-smiling face. I raised a hand in greeting. Morning, everyone. Good morning. Lin Feng was the first to snap out of it, pointing at me in disbelief. You're Accountant Liu. Song Jiqing was equally stunned. How can this be? No, it's impossible. You can't be, Accountant Liu. I waved them off, pulling out my employee ID. No time for chit-chat. I've got to get to work. The atmosphere froze for a moment. Song Jiqing's expression shifted through a whirlwind of emotions before he grabbed my arm and asked urgently, Shuqing, you must be here on behalf of your sister-in-law to check out the factory in advance. Right. What a moron. He's insane. I kicked his hand away. The elderly security guard stopped Song Jiqing warily. Who are you? What's your business here? We're here to report for work. Please state your names. That's odd. Your name isn't on the list of new hires. 8. I hurried to my workstation. What happened next was relayed to me by a colleague. After making a scene at the factory gate, Song Jiqing and Lin Feng had to accept the fact that only Lin Feng would be allowed to work there. Entering the factory also required passing a routine assessment in her past life. Lin Feng barely scraped by with Song Jiqing's help. This time around, she had to handle some minor accounts on her own, though she had some basic knowledge. It had been neglected for so long that she ended up making mistakes in everything. The factory manager shook his head, failed the review, and sent all her materials back. I knew Song Jiqing wouldn't let it go. Sure enough, just as I stepped out of the steel mill after work, someone grabbed me. Song Jiqing, a far cry from his triumphant self that morning, looked utterly dejected, his voice laced with anger. Shu Qing, you actually submitted a job transfer application for my position. I put on an innocent face. You said you felt sorry for your sister-in-law and that we should yield to them. Are you having second thoughts now? Song Jiqing tugged at his hair in frustration. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? That I should just hand over the job I worked so hard to get? You said your sister-in-law has it tough. You make it up to her. What does that have to do with, what's it to me? But I only wanted you to stay in the countryside and live a life of ease. If it's such a good life, why don't you enjoy it yourselves? Don't you like it? Song Jiqing's head drooped powerlessly. It seemed he finally understood the situation was settled and beyond redemption. He paused thoughtfully, as if an idea had struck him. Shu Qing, if you don't want to transfer the job, so be it. But Qianqian is our eldest brother's only child. We can't hold her back. Her mother is so worried she can't even eat. Let Qianqian register under your household and attend the steel mill's elementary school. I'll take Xiaoru back to the countryside. I'm her biological father. I would never treat her poorly. I promise you that. My eyes widened in disbelief as I stared at Song Jiqing. Where did he get the nerve? With just a few words, he wanted to ruin my daughter's future. I was trembling with rage. Just then, Xiaoru emerged from around the corner, while I was at work. She usually waited for me in the dorm, though sometimes she'd come out to meet me. Song Jiqing's eyes lit up the moment he saw Xiaoru. Be a good girl. You'll come back to the countryside with me, won't you? Sister Qianqian has lost her father. She's so pitiful. Couldn't she stay in the city with your mom? Wouldn't that work? Xiaoru tilted her head. But I don't have a father either. I'm a pitiful child too. Who's ever felt sorry for me? I secretly gave Xiaoru a thumbs up. Song Jiqing was taken aback, then turned to glare at me furiously. What kind of nonsense are you teaching her? I'm still alive and well. My daughter wasn't wrong. Some people are alive, but they're already dead. 9. I sneered. We're already divorced. You're always saying Qianqian doesn't have a father, so why don't you hurry up and be her father? We'll gladly let you. How about that? Song Jiqing's face went pale. I had no choice. Shu Qing, you know that. I thought you'd understand. Oh, really? Then why don't you go tell the folks at the Civil Affairs Bureau why you got divorced? Have you no shame? Colleagues were trickling out of the building. By now, everyone at the steel mill knew about Song Jiqing's scene that morning. Worried the situation would get twisted, I had already explained the whole messy history between us to my coworkers. Well, look who it is. The brother-in-law who's got a thing for his sister-in-law. There's no such thing as favoritism for no reason. A man who lets his own wife and child suffer is either a fool or a scoundrel, unable to bear their scornful stares. Song Jiqing turned tail and fled. Xiaoru threw herself into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. I won't have a dad anymore, will I? My heart ached, yet I was also relieved. She was showing the vulnerability appropriate for her age, no longer needing to pretend to be strong. That's right, but you still have your mom, and you have yourself. We're all going to be okay. I comforted her softly. My life settled back into a quiet routine, and Xiaoru got her wish to attend the steel mill's elementary school for employees' children. Song Jiqing, meanwhile, returned to the village with Lin Feng. Gossip spread through the village that his improper relationship with Lin Feng was what led to our divorce. With his reputation in tatters, the village school was no longer willing to take him back. Song Jiqing began trying to learn farm work. Having barely set foot in a field before, he became a source of many jokes. The crops he tended withered in the fields, and the fruits and vegetables he planted never bloomed. After a long, exhausting day, he just wanted to come inside and rest, but Lin Feng stopped him at the door. Lin Feng covered her nose. You reek, go wash up first. Yet Lin Feng hadn't even bothered to heat a pot of water for him, so Song Jiqing had no choice but to bathe in the river. Just like the other laborers, with his fair, delicate skin, he became the target of teasing from a few burly, suntanned men. Flushing crimson with anger, he kept muttering, how vulgar. After bathing in the cold river for several days in a row, he came down with a fever again. In his feverish haze, he thought of me and murmured, Shu Qing, I feel awful. In the past, whenever he felt under the weather, I would stay by his side, preparing congee and feeding him medicine. Xiaoru would also place a damp towel on his forehead and softly comfort him. Daddy will get better. Don't be scared. Now he lay alone in the pitch-black room, with no one left to answer him. He struggled to get out of bed. Just then, Lin Feng returned, her arms laden with shopping bags. Xiqing, I meant to buy you medicine, but Qian wanted new clothes. Sigh, it's already hard enough on her, having to go to school in the village. As she spoke, Lin Feng looked at Song Xiqing with tear-filled, pleading eyes. After all, she was hoping Song Xiqing would pull some strings with me again. If Qian could really stay in the city, she might get a chance to stay too. Wasn't her life in the countryside better than mine anyway? Song Xiqing clearly doted on her and her daughter more, but instead of promising to comfort her as he used to, Song Xiqing irritably walked out the door alone. He saw me standing at the courtyard gate, holding Xiaoru's hand. His eyes lit up with joy. He instinctively smoothed his hair and walked toward us. 10. Xiqing, Xiaoru, what brings you back? Xiaoru and I took a step back. I said calmly, we're here to get a certificate from the village party secretary. Xiaoru is transferring her household registration to be with me. Song Xiqing seemed unsteady on his feet, staggering backward a step. He sniffled, at a loss. Xiaoru, do you miss your dad? You've grown taller and prettier lately. Xiaoru replied politely, her tone courteous yet distant. Thank you. Song Xiqing's eyes were filled with desolation. Just then, Qian rushed out from the side, pointing at Xiaoru. She demanded arrogantly, give me that bow in her hair right now, or I'll have my uncle punish you. Xiaoru didn't show a hint of fear. Why should I give you what's mine? Your things should be handed over to me. That's what uncle said. He's your father. How dare you not obey him? Didn't all the good things in your house used to be given to me first? Xiaoru rolled her eyes. I don't waste my time arguing with idiots. The scene felt all too familiar. Something struck Song Xiqing, and his face flushed with shame. He grabbed Qian. Enough. Get back in the house. Qian had never been scolded before, and she burst into tears. She pounded on Song Xiqing with her fists. I want my dad. I'm a poor child without a father. I'm so pitiful. Hearing the commotion, Lin Feng came rushing out. She glared at me resentfully, then pulled out a handkerchief to wipe her tears. Qian's father died too young and left us, mother and daughter, behind. We should have gone with him. As Lin Feng cried, she kept glancing at Song Xiqing. If your eldest brother were still here, my daughter and I would never have ended up like this. Song Xiqing covered his ears, his face a mask of utter disgust. Lin Feng was taken aback, her sobs halting abruptly. Lin Feng was furious. Song Xiqing, you promised we could go back to how things were. How can you go back on your word? Song Xiqing let out a derisive snort. My elder brother is dead. If you want that life, go find him 6 feet under. I was stunned. This was the first time Song Xiqing had been so cold and harsh with the mother and daughter. The woman's wailing grew even more piercing. Qian picked up a fire poker from the ground and swung it at Song Xiqing. You yelled at my mom. You're a bad person, a real jerk. Song Xiqing stood there, dazed, making no move to dodge. He just fixed a heavy, intense gaze on me and Xiaoru. 11. I felt nothing but irritation and quickly led Xiaoru away from that troublesome place. Walking along the familiar country path, I thought of how we used to be. Song Xiqing and I were a rare case of a love marriage. Song Xiqing was educated, handsome, and came from a small family. After marriage, we were loving and considerate of each other, and we were blessed with a beloved daughter. I thought we would continue on, living a simple, stable life, supporting each other, but everything changed after his eldest brother passed away. I was reminded again of the tragedy of my daughter and me in my past life. Perhaps he didn't change. Perhaps this is who he always was. I saw Song Xiqing again on Xiaoru's birthday. It had been 6 months. His cheeks were gaunt, his skin sun-darkened, his face unshaven. He looked utterly worn down and aged. He was holding a small plastic bag. When he saw the beautifully decorated cake in our hands, he instinctively pulled his own hand back, looking awkward and self-conscious. Xiaoru, happy birthday from your dad. I told my daughter to go upstairs and do her homework first. As her father, I couldn't deny him the right to see his daughter, but we needed to agree on a specific time to avoid catching each other off guard. He pleaded, Xiqing, only now do I realize how terribly wrong I was. Can we ever go back to how things were? I could find another job in the city, or you could bring Xiaoru to visit when you have time. I promise I won't have anything more to do with Lin Feng and her daughter. They're not my responsibility. Continuation of ID, 6, continuation of ID, 6. I shook my head, cutting off his rambling. Xiqing, search your heart. Was it really just about fulfilling your duty to your older brother that you accommodated them? Continuation of ID, 9. Lin Feng was the belle of the surrounding villages, capable of being gentle, considerate, and attentive when times were good. Song Jiqing's elder brother only caught Lin Feng's eye after his business started to take off. Song Jiqing's face instantly turned deathly pale. I said quietly, if you and Lin Feng both got the chance to move to the city, you would devote yourself to them, living together like a family, while you would cast me and Xiaoru aside, paying us no mind. Song Jiqing shook his head desperately. No, I wouldn't. Scenes from my past life flashed before my eyes. I sighed. So, you would wish for your daughter, if she ever had a husband like you, to still turn around and forgive him. I want to show her through my actions that she doesn't need to accommodate anyone, nor forgive anyone who hurts her. Someone who hurts you once is likely to do it a second and a third time. She always had the courage and the means to change an unsatisfactory life and pull herself out of the mire. Song Jiqing was stunned for a moment, then finally buried his face in his hands and wept. I think he probably understood what I meant. In the end, Lin Feng couldn't adjust to life in the countryside. She remarried, taking Qian with her, to an older businessman. She even secretly sold off all the valuable things in the house. I heard they lived well for a few years, but after the businessman went bankrupt, the mother and daughter vanished without a trace. Song Jiqing went to work in the south, sending a few hundred yuan back every month. I accepted every payment. After all, it was the child support he owed Xiaoru. It was his debt to her. He also wrote letters, just asking how we were. I never replied to a single one, so he stopped writing and just sent the money. Xiaoru remained sensitive by nature. I understood this was innate, something I couldn't change, but I will tell her I love her, and that no matter what happens, Mom will always be there to support and help her. Sensitive children always need the most direct and tangible expressions of love. I'm working hard and studying diligently now, striving to be her strongest pillar of support. Also, I want to set a good example for her. To climb out of the mire, courage alone isn't enough. You must also have the capability to sustain yourself. I bear a great deal of responsibility for the tragedy that befell my daughter in our past life. Back then, I was busy with work in the fields. Deep down, I suspected Song Jiqing might not want anything to do with us, yet I kept praising him to my daughter, constantly making excuses for him. It was like brainwashing myself. I couldn't accept the fact that I had been abandoned. Now I understand. When a mother is strong, her child can be fearless. 10 years later, my daughter was admitted to the top university she had always hoped for, and I was promoted to workshop director. The glasses clinked back and forth, and the banquet was packed with guests. My husband, my daughter, and I went from table to table, raising our glasses and accepting the guests' blessings. In a daze, I caught sight of a figure by the window, staring at us in a daze. As if lost in despair, I looked up and saw the face of Song Jiqing, whom I hadn't seen in years. Compared with my graceful aging, he had become much more weathered. The past life and this life overlapped. The difference was that this time, it was we who stood in the light. The end. Story 2. I sat at the table, watching the food on the table gradually getting cold, just like my heart. Today is my birthday, but it's also Li Yan's, Lin Shui's childhood sweetheart. I opened Li Yan's WeChat moments, and indeed there was a newly posted message: grateful to have your company every birthday. Let's promise to spend every birthday together in the future. The photo showed two hands making a heart shape in front of a cake. One of them was Lin Shui's, and the necklace on her hand was given by me. I gave it a like, put down my phone, poured all the dishes that Lin Shui liked on the table into the trash can, and then went to a restaurant to order my favorite dishes to celebrate my birthday. From now on, I will spend every birthday of mine well. When I was halfway through the meal, Lin Shui called, her voice tinged with anxiety. Su Wei, you saw Li Yan's moments, right? I saw it. I'll go back after I finish celebrating his birthday. I'll accompany you next year. Be generous and don't be angry with me. In the past, I would indeed be hysterical and make a big scene, but now I won't. I just said lightly, okay. At a little past 7 the next morning, I was woken up by the ringtone of my phone. It rang 3 times and then stopped. I picked up my phone and saw that it was Lin Shui. In the past, she was too lazy to get the key to open the door, so she would call me every time and hang up after 3 rings. No matter what I was doing at that time, I would quickly go to open the door for her. Today, I didn't go. I threw my phone aside, covered myself with the quilt, and continued to sleep. She knows that the spare key is under the shoe rack at the door. I was packing my luggage until 3 o'clock last night, and my head is still groggy. The phone rang several times again, and I didn't even bother to take a look. I don't know how long it passed, but I vaguely heard someone opening the door outside. The door hit the wall with a loud noise, and then the bedroom door was pushed open forcefully, accompanied by Lin Shui's angry voice. Su Wei, why didn't you open the door for me? I called you several times. You know I hate opening the door with the key the most. I opened my eyes and looked at her indifferently. I was too sleepy and didn't hear it. Lin Shui opened her mouth, but finally only said, "I'm hungry, get up quickly and cook some porridge for me." I didn't sleep all night yesterday. I need to catch up on some sleep after eating. If it were in the past, I would have eagerly cooked breakfast for her, but now I just said lightly, "I'm also very sleepy, you can go downstairs and buy some breakfast yourself." Lin Shui was very angry, but still forced herself to endure it. "Are you still angry about me not accompanying you on your birthday yesterday?" "No, you're overthinking it." Lin Shui didn't believe me and continued talking to herself. "Li Yan is like my brother. His parents passed away early. If I don't accompany him on his birthday, who will? Don't be so petty. I'll get angry if you keep this up." "You're right. It's right for you to accompany him." "I'm not angry. I couldn't fall asleep anymore, so I got up and went to the bathroom." Lin Shui grabbed my hand and reluctantly took out a red string from her pocket. "Here, don't be angry anymore. This is your birthday gift. I remember this is your zodiac year." Looking at the cheap red string, the metal pendant that swayed with the movement seemed so perfunctory. Then I thought about the expensive watch that Li Yan showed off in his moments, and I couldn't help but laugh at myself. I thought that Lin Shui had been living frugally these past few months to buy me a birthday gift, but it turned out I was being sentimental. I shook my hand. I had just put on the watch that my mother sent me a few days ago last night. "Thank you, I have a watch now. It's not convenient for me to wear this. You can keep it for yourself," Lin Shui said angrily. "You still say you're not angry. You used to be happy with whatever I bought you, now you're starting to dislike it." Lin Shui doesn't have a high salary, and the things she gave me on my birthday were all cheap, things worth a few yuan or dozens of yuan. Sometimes she would even forget to give me a gift, but I didn't mind, and every year on her birthday, I would carefully prepare a gift. A week ago, on her birthday, I gave her a gold necklace. I'm tired. I really don't have the strength to entangle with her anymore. I took the red string and put it in my pocket. "Thank you." I changed my clothes and opened the door. Lin Shui shouted at me anxiously, "Where are you going?" "To play basketball with friends." Since I got together with Lin Shui, all my time after work belonged to her. I accompanied her to play, go shopping, and took care of her. I no longer had any time of my own. It won't be like this from now on. I have to live for myself. After having an exciting game with my friends, we sat on the chairs beside the court drinking water. My friends half-jokingly complained, "We thought you'd forget about your brothers once you had a girlfriend. We were even planning not to call you anymore." I quickly apologized and promised, "Sorry, guys, I won't do it again. Just call me whenever there's any activity." "That's more like it. Let's go play a few rounds of games at the internet cafe." After being with Lin Shui, I couldn't fit into her social circle, but I gradually drifted away from my friends. Because of her, I only revolved around her every day, putting her first in everything. Now that I think about it, I was really stupid. It was almost midnight when I got home. When I opened the bedroom door, I saw Lin Shui sitting on the bed. She frowned and said, "Su Wei, why are you coming back so late?" I had to order takeout for lunch and dinner. It tasted awful. I opened the wardrobe to get some clothes to change. I also ate at a restaurant outside today. The food tasted good. It's not worse than cooking by myself. Lin Shui's eyes widened in surprise. "You used to say you would cook for me every day and told me not to eat takeout because it's not clean." I was wrong. Living in this society, if you can't cook, you have to get used to the taste of takeout. A flash of anger passed through Lin Shui's eyes. "You still say you're not angry. You went out for a whole day without making a single call or sending a single WeChat message. And you didn't come back to cook for me," I said lightly. "I'm not angry. I just didn't come back because I was hanging out with friends. My phone was out of power, so I didn't call." Seeing me like this, Lin Shui suddenly threw off the quilt, got out of bed angrily, and grabbed me who was about to leave. Her voice was sharp. "Can't you, a grown-up man, be more open-minded? I've said we're just like siblings. What are you still fussing about?" "Su Wei, my patience has limits." I broke free from her hand. "I'm really not fussing. I'm sleepy. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight." Then I took my clothes and went to the public bathroom to take a shower. I ignored Lin Shui's calls. I had a good sleep that night. Lin Shui doesn't sleep well. She kicks the quilt several times a night. When I sleep with her, I can't sleep through the night. I have to get up several times to cover her with the quilt. Early the next morning, Lin Shui was sitting in the living room with her arms crossed and a gloomy face. I knew she was waiting for me to go to her first, apologize, and coax her to be happy. In the past, whenever she was unhappy, I would humbly beg her to forgive me, even if I didn't think it was my fault. Then she would come up with a bunch of conditions, and only after I did everything as she asked would she reluctantly forgive me. This has been the routine for so many years. and I'm tired. I ignored her, washed up, and then went out. I had important things to do today. I went to the company to submit my resignation letter. The manager was very surprised and tried to persuade me to stay several times, but I insisted on leaving. I originally took this job to be with Lin Shui and take care of her nearby, but now it's no longer necessary. Last night, I made a video call to my family and told my parents that I was going to resign and go back to my hometown. I saw the surprised tears in my mother's eyes. My father's health hasn't been very good recently, and it's really difficult for him to run a small supermarket alone. Although it's called my hometown, it's not remote. It's a third-tier city along the coast. Lin Shui is from Sichuan province. She likes spicy food and has always refused to go back with me before, saying that she's not used to the food, so I left my parents and came here to find a job with her. In the evening, I invited my friends out for dinner and told them the news. They all thought it was right for me to go back. Parents' health is more important. After a few drinks, someone suddenly said, "What about Lin Shui? Is she willing to go back with you?" I was silent for a while and then smiled bitterly. "No, we should break up." In the past, I thought I could build a home with Lin Shui here and then bring my parents here later, but now this home is gone. I want to go back to the home where my parents are, the home that will never abandon me. When I got home, I saw Lin Shui wearing a white dress, her black hair loose, and her face exquisitely made up. She was video chatting with Li Yan on her phone. Li Yan's voice came from the other end of the phone. "Xiaoxue, you're so beautiful, even in a simple white dress. You look like a fairy." Lin Shui couldn't stop smiling and covered her face coquettishly. "Really, your mouth is still as sweet as ever." I stood there quietly without saying a word. This white dress was not simple. I bought it for her with a month's salary. When Lin Shui turned around and saw me while smiling, her face fell. She turned to Li Yan and said, "I won't talk anymore, I'm going out. I'll be there soon. You can eat something to fill your stomach first." Lin Shui can be all smiles and caring towards Li Yan, but she doesn't even give me a smile. She gave me a disgusted look and then bypassed me to change her shoes and go out. She's starting to give me the cold shoulder treatment again. During the years we've been together, she often stopped talking to me because of things related to Li Yan. Every time I was very anxious and tried every way to please her. This time, I'm not nervous. I just carried the groceries I bought and went to the kitchen to make myself a midnight snack. I was busy drinking with my friends in the evening and didn't eat much. I'm a little hungry now. In the following days, I was busy handing over my work and packing my luggage. The things in the house that belonged to me were gradually decreasing, but Lin Shui didn't notice. Today, Lin Shui went out to a gathering with Li Yan again. I was sitting at the dining table, eating and scrolling through my phone. Li Yan posted in his moments, "Every time I feel lonely, you're by my side. It's so nice, grateful." In the photo, Lin Shui and Li Yan were leaning their heads together, making a V sign to the camera. Lin Shui's girlfriends all liked and left messages below, envying the relationship between them. All along, they thought Lin Shui should be with Li Yan. The childhood sweetheart relationship is so appealing, and I'm the third party who got in the way of their relationship. Looking at that moments post, I suddenly thought that Lin Shui's girlfriends were right. The two of them really looked more like a couple. In the past, after enduring in silence for a long time, I would gently remind Lin Shui to keep some distance from Li Yan to avoid suspicion. Her girlfriends would mock me for being too controlling, keeping Lin Shui under tight control and not giving her any right to make friends. Lin Shui didn't defend me. Instead, she accused me along with them, telling me not to restrict her and to give her more freedom. Lin Shui also left a message, "You're also accompanying me." I calmly exited WeChat and got up to clean the dining table. There were rumblings of thunder outside. It was going to rain. I went to the balcony to bring in all the clothes, and then big raindrops started hitting the windows. In the past, as soon as it rained, I would be anxious to call Lin Shui to ask where she was and go to pick her up with an umbrella, for fear that she would get a little wet. She and her girlfriends would laugh at me, saying I was like an old woman, worrying too much and making them unable to enjoy themselves. I took a shower early and lay on the bed, scrolling through short videos. Unconsciously, I fell asleep. The sound of Lin Shui forcefully pushing open my bedroom door woke me up. Seeing me sleeping, she angrily questioned me, "Su Wei, it's raining heavily outside. Your girlfriend hasn't come home so late, and you're not worried at all." If it were the boyfriends of my girlfriends, they would keep calling to ask where they are and go to pick them up with an umbrella in person. "What about you?" I was a bit surprised. I really didn't understand why she was so angry. Once, when it was raining and she was with Li Yan, I called her several times to ask where she was and when she would come back. wanting to pick her up. She got very angry and said that I was completely meddling. Since she was with Li Yan, he would send her back. She also said that I just couldn't stand her being with Li Yan and was making excuses to get her to come home quickly, claiming that my controlling behavior was suffocating her. Now that I've given her freedom, she comes to question me about why I didn't go to pick her up. I really don't understand what she wants. I replied with a calm heart. You're with Li Yan. I have nothing to worry about. You guys can play a little longer. Naturally, he'll send you back. Lin Shui's eyes widened in disbelief. Maybe she was wondering why I could mention Li Yan so calmly and even allow them to stay out late alone. In a flash, she seemed to think of something and started to explain. Today is the anniversary of Li Yan's mother's death. He's very sad. As a friend, I really can't leave him alone. Don't get the wrong idea. I understood and nodded in agreement. I see. On such days, one should accompany him more. By being so reasonable left Lin Shui not knowing what else to say. She looked at my face intently, trying to find even the slightest trace of anger. But she didn't. Lin Shui softened her voice and said, Sui, I bought a new nightgown. It's black lace. Can you help me see if it fits? I looked at her in surprise. Her doing this was tantamount to taking the initiative to make peace. In the past, she always put on a haughty air and would only reconcile with me reluctantly after I pleaded with her for a long time. I pretended not to understand the hidden meaning in her words and just said, no need. If you like it, that's fine. Go back to your room and sleep early. Lin Shui looked at me in disbelief, then became angry and left. I got out of bed to close the door, then came back and continued to sleep. I had a good night's sleep. Early the next morning, my friend Daliu called to invite me to dinner. He had just come back from a business trip. When he heard that I was going back to my hometown, he said we should get together again as there would be few such opportunities in the future. I felt a bit sad hearing this and agreed. Before hanging up the phone, he added, oh, by the way, bring Lin Shui along. I won't call her separately. Indeed, Daliu was not only my friend but also Lin Shui's. It was he who introduced Lin Shui and me to each other back then. However, this way, my plan to go back to my hometown couldn't be hidden anymore. Since I hadn't finished handling my affairs, I didn't want any complications. Just as I hung up the phone, Lin Shui came out. I hesitated for a moment, then looked up at her and said, Daliu wants to invite us to have dinner together tonight. She looked at me, a bit hesitant. Just as she was about to speak, her phone rang. I don't know what was said on the other side, but Lin Shui softly comforted, Li Yan, don't worry, it can't be lost. I'll come over right away to help you look for it. Lin Shui hung up the phone and rushed out, changing her shoes quickly and saying to me, Sui, Li Yan has an urgent matter and needs my help. You go to dinner by yourself tonight. I won't go. Please tell Daliu for me. In the evening, at a food stall, just as Daliu and I raised our glasses to clink, Lin Shui came in, with Li Yan beside her. The moment our eyes met, Lin Shui looked a bit surprised and embarrassed. Li Yan beside her smiled provocatively at me. Lin Shui came forward and said, a bit uneasily, what a coincidence, you guys are here too. Li Yan pretended to be apologetic and said, Xiaoxue saw that I was hungry, so she said she'd bring me here to eat. I hope we're not disturbing you. Dahlia seemed to have forgotten that Lin Shui had refused to have dinner with us. He warmly invited them to sit with us and called the waiter to add a few more dishes. Lin Shui wanted to sit next to me. I got up and moved to sit next to Daliu, leaving the seats opposite for her and Li Yan. Lin Shui's girlfriends were quite right. She and Li Yan seemed more well matched. I'd better not get in their way. There was a bit of nervousness on Lin Shui's face. She tried to speak and explain to me several times, but was interrupted. I chatted with Daliu about the old days on my own. My phone kept buzzing with WeChat notifications. I took the time to take out my phone and have a look. They were messages from Lin Shui. Sui, don't get the wrong idea. After helping Li Yan find his things, he suddenly wanted to eat at a food stall, so I brought him here. I really didn't know you guys were here. If you don't like it, I won't do this next time. Shall we go home together after dinner? I lowered my head and replied, no need. After dinner, you and Li Yan can leave. First, I want to talk to Daliu for a while longer. I put down my phone and focused on talking to Daliu, ignoring the messages Lin Shui sent. After a few drinks, Daliu got drunk. He put his arm around me, his eyes red. Why are you suddenly going back to your hometown? You're my best friend in this city. If you leave, there'll be no one to drink with me. I felt sad, and a rush of heat welled up in my eyes. Our parents are getting old and their health isn't good. I have to go back and take care of them. Isn't your company expanding its business along the coast? When you go on a business trip to my place, I'll treat you to a drink. In the end, Daliu didn't say anything more. He just picked up his glass and toasted me again. Lin Shui seemed to have heard something unbelievable. She stared at me in shock with wide eyes. She asked Daliu in disbelief, Daliu, what did you just say? Who's going back to their hometown? Daliu was drunk and it took him a while to react before answering. Your Suwei is going back to his hometown, don't you know? I invited you guys to dinner today to see him off. Lin Shui suddenly stood up and pulled me to a corner. I leaned against the wall and looked at her quietly. Her eyes were very red, with tears welling up in her eyes. After a moment, Lin Shui spoke with a trembling voice. When did you decide to go back to your hometown? Why didn't you discuss it with me? I lowered my head, clenched my fists, and held back the urge to wipe her tears. I decided when I chatted with my parents on my birthday. You were celebrating Li Yan's birthday that night and didn't come back, so I didn't disturb you. A look of panic flashed across Lin Shui's face. She took a step forward and grabbed my hand, saying, no matter what the reason is, I'm your girlfriend. You should tell me first whenever you decide to do something. I looked at her in surprise. In the past, I would tell her immediately whatever I wanted to do. I thought this was respect. But Lin Shui was always impatient. She would say, can't you, a grown-up man, be more decisive? You come to ask me about everything. I'm not your mother. Lin Shui took a deep breath and asked tentatively, how long are you going to be back? I hesitated for a moment, then decided to keep it from her for now. I plan to go back for a few months first. Lin Shui was surprised and said, why so long? I lowered my head and remained silent. Finally, Lin Shui sighed, no longer waiting for my answer. She just looked at me expectantly and said, let's leave together later. I was about to refuse instinctively when Li Yan came over. He reeked of alcohol. He grabbed Lin Shui's hand, his movement extremely natural. Xiaoxue, why did you run here? After dinner, accompany me to buy some bedding. Lin Shui looked at me guiltily, trying to break free from Li Yan's hand but couldn't. She explained carefully, we grew up together. We're used to this way of getting along. It's just like siblings. There's no other meaning. I understood and nodded in agreement. I know. Li Yan shook her hand again and said, I had a few more drinks just now. My head is a bit dizzy. Please accompany me to buy some and change it. I vomited on the bed last night and soiled it. I won't have a place to sleep tonight if I don't change it. Lin Shui looked at him helplessly. Stop shaking. I'll accompany you. Lin Shui once told me that she hated people who drank in the past. As long as I had a drink, she wouldn't allow me to get close to her, let alone help me change the bedsheet soiled by vomiting. So it turned out that when it was Li Yan who drank, she didn't mind. Lin Shui looked at me. Suwei, you and Daliu talk for a while longer. Wait for me here. I'll accompany him to buy the bedsheet and change it first, and then come back immediately to pick you up and go home together. I took a step back and said lightly, no need. He needs you more than I do. I'll call a car to go back later. Lin Shui tried to grab me, but I dodged and then walked back to my seat quickly. I said goodbye to Daliu and called a car for both him and me. Before getting in the car, Daliu, who was drunk, became sober for a moment. He patted me on the shoulder and said, Lin Shui has gone too far. Her relationship with Li Yan must have hurt you, right? I'm sorry, bro. I shouldn't have introduced you two back then. My throat tightened, and a few tears couldn't help falling. I quickly turned my head to hide them. Over the years, Lin Shui had left me for Li Yan countless times. I thought I was already used to it. Daliu's words instantly pierced the shell that I thought I had guarded well, so I still felt pain. Once, Lin Shui and I had a lot of beautiful memories, but as more and more quarrels occurred because of Li Yan, those memories became increasingly blurred. I composed myself and turned to him with a smile. Daliu, it's not your fault. Daliu sighed and said, it's not your fault either. Try to think things through. I nodded, helped him into the car, and watched the car drive away, just like my past with Lin Shui. As soon as I got home, Lin Shui called, Suwei, Li Yan's stomach is uncomfortable. I can't go back tonight. I have to stay and take care of him. This was the first time Lin Shui reported to me about not coming back. In the past, as soon as I asked her who she was with and when she would come back, she would lose her temper, thinking that I was controlling her. Every time I had to humble myself and coax her for a long time before she would calm down. This time, I didn't ask any more questions. I just replied softly, okay. Lin Shui explained again, his stomach is not good. If I don't take good care of him, he might end up in the hospital. Don't think too much. I'll go back early tomorrow morning. I replied calmly again, okay. Lin Shui seemed to want to say something else, but Li Yan's voice calling her came from the other end of the phone. Lin Shui threw out a sentence, don't think too much. As soon as his stomach stops hurting, I'll go back right away, and then hung up the phone in a hurry. I looked at the phone and chuckled. I got too emotional tonight and had a few more drinks with Daliu. Now my head is dizzy. And I feel nauseous and want to vomit. I'm drunk too. I couldn't help going to the toilet to vomit several times before I felt a little better. But then my stomach started to hurt again. Then I remembered that my stomach wasn't healthy either. I drank too fast tonight and forgot to eat something to line my stomach first. I forced myself to find a stomach medicine. I couldn't wait to boil water, so I just swallowed it with cold water and then went to lie on the bed. I tossed and turned uncomfortably all night and couldn't fall asleep. I didn't get a little rest until dawn the next day. Lin Shui didn't come back until the afternoon. When she entered the door, I was cleaning the house. It was a bit messy as I hadn't tidied it for a few days. Lin Shui rarely came over to help me clean. Let me help you. I looked at her in surprise and shook my head. No need, I'm almost done. After we got together, I was the one who did all the cleaning in this house. She never lifted a finger. Lin Shui put down the hand that reached for the broom, glanced at me, and said a bit uneasily, Li Yan's stomach is not good, and he never pays attention to it. He gets stomachaches from time to time. I took care of him until dawn yesterday. I'm exhausted. I nodded in agreement. That must be very tiring. Lin Shui looked embarrassed, probably not expecting that I wouldn't make a fuss. After a while, she asked nervously, Su Wei, I've thought about it. How about I accompany you back to your hometown? I looked at her in surprise. During long holidays in the past, I had mentioned asking her to accompany me back to my hometown, but she always refused firmly. She said taking the train was too time-consuming. Taking a plane made her airsick. She either said she wasn't used to the food or that there was a communication barrier due to the language. She came up with all kinds of excuses to shirk. If it were in the past, I would have been so happy that I'd jump up and immediately help her pack her luggage and book a flight ticket, but now I just refused calmly. No need, you have work to do. Since I'm not sure how long I'll be back, I don't want to trouble you. The smile on Lin Shui's lips froze, and she said awkwardly, then I'll wait for you to come back at home. I didn't respond. Lin Shui then asked, my girlfriend's birthday is tonight, will you come with me? I was surprised again. Her girlfriend's gatherings never included me, because Lin Shui's girlfriends looked down on me. The person she took to every gathering was Li Yan. I refused. No, they'll be unhappy if I go. A look of unease flashed across Lin Shui's face. How could that be? You're my boyfriend, they won't mind. I looked at her quietly until she lowered her head guiltily. I remember once her girlfriend laughed at me in person, saying that I was inferior to Li Yan in every way. I looked at her for help, feeling at a loss, but she said indifferently, you really can't compare with Li Yan, but since you've become my boyfriend, you should figure out how to get along with my girlfriends on your own. Don't always ask me to help. In fact, the attitude of her girlfriends depended on her attitude towards me. If she respected me, they wouldn't have treated me like this. I packed the garbage, ready to take it downstairs to throw away. I'm not free tonight. You can ask Li Yan to accompany you. Lin Shui looked at me in disbelief, as if she had never thought that I would refuse her and even suggest that she ask Li Yan to accompany her. She grabbed me who was about to go out and asked nervously, where are you going tonight? I'll go with you, I explained. I've finished handing over my work. I don't need to go to the company tomorrow. I want to invite some of my familiar colleagues to dinner tonight to say goodbye. It's better for you to go to your girlfriend's birthday party after. Hearing this, Lin Shui didn't insist on going with me. She just asked tentatively, if you don't go, then I'll really ask Li Yan to go with me. I nodded with a smile. Go ahead. Lin Shui carefully searched my face for signs of jealousy, but she was destined to be disappointed. Don't you feel even a bit jealous? She couldn't help asking. I found it strange. Didn't she dislike my jealousy the most before? Now that I'm no longer jealous as she wished, she seems to be unaccustomed to it instead. What's there to be jealous about? You said you two are just like siblings. Besides, he has a closer relationship with your girlfriends. Isn't it normal for you to go with him? Lin Shui opened her mouth, but in the end, she didn't say anything more. She just reminded me, come back early. If you drink, call me and I'll come pick you up. I thought about it and then nodded in agreement. I was surely going to drink tonight, and it would be good if she was willing to pick me up, saving me the trouble of taking a taxi. After the dinner, I called Lin Shui. The music on her end was very loud, and it sounded like there were many people laughing and making noise. I hesitated and said, I'm done here. Haven't you finished over there yet? Maybe I should just take a taxi back. Lin Shui quickly stopped me. No. I said I'd come pick you up. Wait for me a while. I'll tell them. At this time, I heard someone shouting to Lin Shui on the other side, Xiaoxue, come quickly and take your Li Yan away. He's drunk and lying on the ground. He won't let anyone touch him and keeps shouting for you. Come quickly. Lin Shui asked me hesitantly. Su Wei, how about you wait for me a bit longer? I'll send Li Yan back first. I twitched the corners of my mouth and said understandingly, "It's okay, go ahead and send him, I'll take a taxi back." Lin Shui anxiously explained, "Sue, don't worry. I'll go home right away after sending him back. There's nothing between us." "Yeah, I know, go ahead. I'm going to call a taxi now." After hanging up the phone, I directly called a taxi and went home. After washing up, I lay down on the bed, then my phone rang. It was Lin Shui's call. I answered it, and before I could say anything, I heard Li Yan's whining voice on the other side. "Xiaoxue, don't go, my stomach hurts, rub it for me." Lin Shui's voice was full of helplessness. "Li Yan, stop making trouble, I have to go back. Sue is waiting for me at home, let him wait, it's not like he's never waited before." "Xiaoxue, my stomach really hurts, do you have the heart to let me die of pain?" Lin Shui sighed. "You're really impossible. Is it here? Does it feel better when I rub it like this?" "Yeah, it's here, it feels a bit better, rub it for a while longer." I listened expressionlessly until this point, then hung up the call, which was probably made by accident. I browsed some videos for a while and then turned off my phone to sleep. Lin Shui didn't come back all night. She didn't return home until almost noon the next day. After changing her shoes and entering the house, she walked up to me and explained, "Last night, after sending Li Yan back, his stomach problem flared up again. I took care of him until very late, so I didn't come back. I just slept on his sofa for the night." I casually replied with an and continued looking at my phone. She came over to hold my hand, but I avoided it. Lin Shui finally couldn't take it anymore and said emotionally, "Sue, I really can't stand your indifferent attitude. Can we have a good talk? Isn't this good?" I was confused. Not interfering too much in her life was exactly what she had been longing for all along, wasn't it? Why was she unhappy now? Lin Shui seemed to have found the answer herself. "Are you treating me like this because of Li Yan?" I remained silent. She gritted her teeth and said, "If you don't like me having contact with him, I can cut off ties with him. Please, can you stop being like this?" Lin Shui looked at me expectantly, her eyes pleading. No matter how much I argued before, she refused to break off contact with Li Yan, but now she could mention it so easily. What I had been looking forward to the most in these few years was about to come true, yet my heart was as calm as still water. I said indifferently, "No need, it's your right to make friends with whomever you want. I have no right to interfere." Lin Shui looked anxious. "Sue, do you not believe that I'll really break off with Li Yan? I'll call him right now." With that, Lin Shui took out her phone, dialed Li Yan's number, and put it on speaker. Soon, Li Yan answered the phone. "Xiaoxue, have you arrived home? Do you miss me already after just leaving?" Lin Shui glanced at me nervously and then quickly said sternly, "Li Yan, don't talk nonsense. I'm calling to tell you that we shouldn't contact each other anymore. My boyfriend doesn't like it." Li Yan shouted in disbelief. "Xiaoxue, what do you mean? How can you treat me like this because of that stingy Sue?" Lin Shui emphasized again. "He's my boyfriend, you're not allowed to talk about him like that. We won't contact each other anymore. That's it." After that, she quickly hung up the phone and ignored the continuous ringing. Lin Shui said to me ingratiatingly, "Sue, see, I really broke off with Li Yan. Don't be angry anymore. Let's be good from now on, okay?" I looked at her in shock, not expecting her to be so decisive. I originally planned to mention breaking up on the day I left, but now I had to bring it forward. I said slowly, "Lin Shui, you don't need to do this. I think we should break." Lin Shui suddenly stepped forward and covered my mouth, blocking the words break up that I was about to say. Her lips were trembling, and tears were falling down one by one. In the past, seeing her cry would make my heart ache. I would be in a hurry to wipe her tears and coax her until she stopped crying and smiled. But now I didn't raise my hand to wipe her tears. I just looked at her quietly. "Sue, I'll go back to your hometown with you." After saying that, Lin Shui tightly hugged my waist and pressed her face against my chest. Soon, that area became wet. I thought my heart had been protected so firmly that nothing could hurt it, but at this moment, it still ached unbearably. I slowly raised my hand and pushed her away, saying with difficulty, "I'm sorry, Lin Shui, let's break up." Lin Shui hugged me tightly again, shaking her head while crying loudly. "No, Sue, I don't want to break up. I don't want to be separated from you." I smiled bitterly. "You should be happy. From now on, no one will keep bothering you and making you feel unfree." Lin Shui was in tears, begging me, "No, I was wrong. Sue, please don't break up with me, okay? I won't say you're controlling me anymore, and I won't contact Li Yan either. Please give me another chance. Please," I said with a hard heart. "Lin Shui, don't do this. We're from two different worlds. Now we're just going back to our own worlds. I'm really tired. After these years, I pried her hands away, retreated to my room, and no longer went out even though Lin Shui was crying loudly outside. The next day, I dragged my suitcase and opened the room door. I saw Lin Shui sleeping on the sofa. With tears still on her face, I picked up the thin blanket beside her and gently covered her with it, silently saying, "Goodbye." When I was waiting at the station, Lin Shui's call came. Her voice was anxious and flustered. "Su Wei, where did you go? Why are your things gone?" I didn't want to answer the phone at first, but in the end, I softened my heart. After all, she was the one I had deeply loved. My throat tightened. "Lin Shui, I'm leaving. I wish you all the best in the future." Lin Shui cried out. "Su Wei, how can I be okay if you leave? Where are you going? Don't go. Wait for me to go with you. Take care." After saying this, I hung up the phone. My phone kept ringing, but I didn't answer anymore. Then messages kept coming in. "Are you at the train station?" Lin Shui opened her mouth, but in the end, she only said, "I'm hungry. Get up quickly and cook some porridge for me. I didn't sleep all night yesterday. I need to catch up on some sleep after eating. I'm here. Where are you?" I didn't reply and dragged my suitcase to queue for entry. The moment I stepped into the entrance, I heard a shrill shout from behind the crowd. "Su Wei." I stiffened all over, paused for a moment, and then continued walking forward. A few days later, I was checking the goods at the entrance of the supermarket in my hometown. A trembling voice with a sobbing tone sounded behind me. "Su Wei." I stopped what I was doing and slowly turned around. It was Lin Shui. She looked much haggard after just a few days of not seeing her. "You didn't just come back for a few months, right?" I nodded gently. "Yes, I'm not going back there." Lin Shui's eyes were red-rimmed, and she asked me with a choked voice, "Why did you lie to me?" I smiled bitterly. "You've lied to me countless times in the past few years. This is just the only time I lied to you. In the past few years, the lies Lin Shui told me because of Li Yan were too numerous to count once. These lies made my heart ache. Now, did she feel the same way?" Lin Shui cried and pleaded. "Su Wei, can I move here to be with you?" I closed my eyes, and when I opened them again, my voice was as firm as iron. "When disappointment accumulates, it turns into despair. We can't go back, Lin Shui. Let's part on good terms." I watched Lin Shui's lonely and desolate back gradually move away, just like the fading memories in my mind, until they disappeared. From then on, she and I would continue to move forward in our respective worlds, but without each other anymore.